Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today to try and discuss House of Chains Book 2. So I'm here today with Layla. We're going to be all things up to book through Book 2. So, Layla, how are you doing today?
I'm just fine, doing great. How are you?
Not too bad. Can't complain too much.
Mhm.
Just scrambling at the last minute here because I really enjoyed Book 1. I think we had we talked about that a couple weeks ago, but Book 2, I kind of got lost in this one. There's a lot happening, big change of pace. But so, what did you think? Just general thoughts.
General thoughts. I feel like book two is a time where Erickson is putting some new threads into the weave, to use a Wheel of Time reference, I guess. Um, and so I think the relationships we see building are significant, and but we just don't know why yet. And I think that's why it is confusing still. And we're back to reading on faith a bit, just as we said, like for Memories of Ice, even, starting. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
you had a really great idea on this slideshow you created, so I'll bring it up on the screen for those of you
Mhm.
watching. So, because you had mentioned that it's helpful to have a tether to Karsa because we did both enjoy Karsa quite a bit. So that was a really great idea to have that to kind of as like a light to get us through.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And my thoughts about Karsa this time, he's not prominent in a lot of book two, because in book two we open with Tavare Tavore Perrin and Gamut, who are Tavori is Felison's sister,
Hmm.
and Felison, was given away to the auditorial mines. Tavori felt she had to do it to save her family's honor. So we see these two sides shaping up where Felison is now the high priestess of the whirlwind, and Tavori is trying to vanquish the whirlwind, and not knowing that Felicin is involved. But Felicin knows that Tavori is involved, and she's seeking vengeance. So that, and we can come back to that. That's one layer of it. So, as we talked about a little bit last time, Corsa Orlong was the guard for the previous high priestess of the whirlwind,
Hmm.
who was killed. So actually, he was a bodyguard for her, but she was killed on his watch. But he is now, still involved with the what is it? The soldiers of the apocalypse, I guess you'd say. The soldiers of the whirlwind. He's involved, and what he has taken to doing is recarving the seven faces on the rock from his home town, his home village.
Hmm.
And so even Felicien even comes and visits him, and there are snakes, around that come to watch him, carve these faces out of the stone. And from what I can tell, when he's finally carved the faces, they speak to him, and it's as if they have intended for him to do that, so that they have actually escaped wherever they were before. He's now enabled them to be outside of that place and in this new place.
Hmm.
And something that really struck me was that he also carved the faces of his two dead friends, and the spirits of those friends began to speak to him. And so, from his long journey, he not just his journey, physical journey, but he was on an emotional, spiritual journey and a journey of knowledge. And that seems to have come full circle. And so I pulled up a couple of quotes that I
Hmm.
really liked that mention that. And this is where I really love this fan art by Sam Burley, because if I'm reading it correctly, he's carved his two friends, I think Baroth and Delos, if that's correct.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're speaking to him, and so I love this fan art because it looks like he's like, you know, got his head in his hands, like, what have I done? And in the text it says, Karsa flinched. Do I dream this? Then he straightened. I have drawn your spirits to this place. Did you travel in the wake of the seven, which is the seven faces he drew? And then Baroth Guild responded, we have walked the empty lands, empty yet we were not alone, and so on. And so it just shows Karsa has something more, even more than just being on, like last time we were saying, the journey of the young man out to, learn about the world. He's actually either being controlled by the seven or somehow in service to them, and especially his own clan's god, which is Urgal.
Mm.
And at one point, even the face of Urgal does speak to him and says something like, I forget what it was, but it's like he was telling him he didn't do good enough. And Karsa Orlong was kind of talked back to Urgal and said, you don't have to talk to me like that. Um, there's something there. There's some exchange there that he has that capacity to do that. Um,
Mm.
so I find that very interesting as a subtext to everything else going on. You have Karsa um, doing that. And then the next quote, too, I think speaks to that. Um, oh, yeah. I think this is where Urgal chastises him. You've brought us closer, Urgal eventually rasped, close enough to sense the precise location of what we desire. And there you must now go, Karsa Orlong. You've delayed the journey for so long, your journey to ourselves and on the path we have set before you. So that's pretty clear that they have some investment in him.
Yeah.
Um, but then, you know, more conversation. Um, and they say, like you, warrior, we seek freedom. And then Karsa was silent, avid indeed, responding to what they had said. Then he spoke, I'm to travel west into the Jag Odin. He sensed their shock and excitement, then the chorus of suspicion that poured out from the seven gods. West, indeed, Karsa Orlong, but how do you know this? And he says, because at last I'm my father's son.
Mm.
So that sounds like a full circle. Um, he's completed something and he's realized something now. And he's actually going to find a horse worthy of him in the Jag Odin. I think it's yeah, a larger, more aggressive horse,
Mm.
from what I can tell.
One that suits him.
One that suits him, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's all about Karsa, but I felt that he still has a role to play. And even as the other stuff is going on around him, he's fulfilling a destiny that I'm pretty sure is going to come back for all of us to consider
Hmm.
at some point. Yeah. So, um, what were some things that caught your attention that you?
On this one, I felt pretty good going into it, and then once when we got back to so many different characters, and then some of the characters have they're referred to as different names sometimes because
Yeah.
their names change. I start to get a little bit lost, and I'll finish it, and then I'll think, okay, that was good, but what just happened? I have to
Yeah.
I have to go back and read sections, and this is why I don't know. It's not like a big deal to switch back on the Kindle to check the character list, but it's a little bit of a. It's not the same as just flipping back pages
Right.
on a paperback. So that's this is one of those books that I wish had a big trade version of it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I went to Kindle because I don't like the smaller
Mhm.
books at all. For that exact reason, I just feel like they're harder to manage. But Kindle has its issues too, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And really, the way I've read this, I have it on Audible and Kindle, and so I actually listen while I walk. But I
Hmm.
use that whisper sync where you can like have it read as you it reads aloud
Oh,
as
okay.
you read the Kindle. But so with all of that, I have probably read book two twice
Oh, okay.
or two and a half times now because between listening to it and then stopping and then saying, okay, let's listen to the whole thing again. But it's still very difficult, and I know I don't have the full context of what's going on. Um, but what I one thing I did notice, I think the big overall um, event of this book is going to be the showdown between Felison and Tavori. It has,
Hmm.
it has to be, um, and what's his name? Ganawa's Perrin
Hmm.
is involved, uh, not directly in this, but is being considered all the way through it because Fellison finds out he's still alive. And then Tavori finds out that not only was he still alive, but he was working as a secret, he was on some secret mission for the Empress. And so he had never, dishonored their house at all.
Hmm.
And so I think at the end of book two, Tavori realizes she never needed to have sold Fellison off in the first place. So that was kind of wow,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, yeah. So, and then there's a section where they think he's dead again,
Hmm.
and I haven't quite figured that out yet. So,
Yeah. I was because I was a little bit confused with that. So I just think it's they think he's dead, but he's
yeah,
still alive. Yeah.
yeah. And another one with the different names. Fiddler from the Bridge Burners is back as Strings,
Hmm.
but then some people know he's Fiddler and they call him Fiddler.
Yeah.
And sometimes on the same page, you've got Fiddler and Strings both being used. Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's kind of endearing that they have these like they have like these nicknames that they get when they come into they're in that kind of environment, and everyone kind of gets a name that they're known by, like Strings or something that they do well, or for whatever reason they're called that. But it makes it a little hard to. There's so many of them. It makes it hard to keep up.
yeah. I do have my own little list, even though there's a list in the back, I
Mm.
don't, or the front or wherever it is, I don't find that as helpful because it never says everything I'm trying to remember. So,
Yeah, it's a lot
yeah,
to remember.
yeah. So another pair I really enjoyed is Troll Sengar and Onrak. Um, and again, I don't know if I'm finding humor mistakenly or if the humor is intended, but they seem to be kind of once so they met. I don't know. Do you remember that part where Charles Singar is the one that we saw in the prologue whose family tied him down and shaved his head and left him to be drowned.
Right.
Yeah. And so then, and apparently they're in a warren, um, and Onrak comes along, and I forget how to pronounce his last name. Um, and so I'm getting Onrak and Trolsingar. So Trolsingar essentially bargains with Onrak and says, I know your enemies well. I used to be one of them, but now they've cast me out. And then Onrak says he's a castaway, or he's been cast out of his people. And so Tralsingar bargains with Onrak to release him from his chains, to save him from drowning. So he does. But then they end up kind of on this. I don't know. Do you remember Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Kind of like this little road trip, where you know they're kind of debating each other, talking to each other, and then they get to this part, which I really thought was this was the part I thought was funny, um, because Tralsingar basically uh, goads Onrak into releasing these hounds of darkness, because they're kind of like, I read it as kind of the double dog dare you type of thing, you know, because I think no, Troll says, are these beasts trapped for eternity, do you think? They're these stone wolves or stone dogs. And is this where they go when they are destroyed? And Onrak shrugged, I have no patience with these games. You possess your own knowledge and suspicions, yet would not speak them. Instead, you seek to discover what I know and what I sense of these snared spirits. So he's kind of like combative with Trolsingar. I care nothing for the fate either of these hounds of shadow. Indeed, I find it somewhat unfortunate that if these two were slain in some other realm and so have ended up here, there are but 5 remaining, for that diminishes my chances of killing one myself. And I think I would enjoy killing a hound of shadow. So then Trolsingar basically dares him. He says that. So the Tister Eater's laugh was harsh. Well, I won't deny that confidence counts for a lot. A lot. Even so, Onrak of the Low Groves, I do not think you would walk away from a violent encounter with a hound. And I bolded that because to me that was like him saying, "I dare you,"
Yeah.
So then, Onrak is like, "Oh yeah, we'll watch here." But then they end up. It's not Hounds of Shadow. It's Hounds of Darkness, which is a lot worse. So they they really, you know, let loose the wrong hounds, definitely. So, but they became friends, and so it's a good. I think it's a good. It's fun to read.
Hmm.
You know, you can see that they're going to have a connection going forward, and I don't know why or what, but it's building up to something, or it has to be building up to something. So.
I don't know where it changed for me, but I think I missed a lot of the dry humor
Uh-huh.
in the Gardens of the Moon. But I'm starting to pick up on it now because there were a few times when I wondered if this was an intentional attempt at humor, but I thought there was a lot of funny moments.
Yeah. Um, and sometimes you have to go back. It is one of those things where you have to go right back and read it again. Because even here, I thought, what? At least, how old is this Talanon Mass? Isn't he old enough to know better than to be goaded? But maybe that's why he's an outcast in the first place.
Hmm.
And that is something, that both of them are outcasts because they stepped outside of the norm of their people. And Troll Singar says it's because he was a truth teller, so yeah, and I'm not quite clear on why Onrak was out yet, but he ended up losing an arm and losing his connection to other Talana Mass. He lost a lot off of this dare.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. So I'd say that was one of the high points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the
Um, and the last one, I just like this quote. I thought I'd just share it because I wonder if this is something Erickson is really trying to say in general. Um, and I forget what came before this. I think they were saying, things happen or we can't see the future.
mhm.
But then this person who is a war chief from some tribe that's probably important that I haven't figured out yet. It says the past is all patterns, and those patterns remain beneath our feet, even as the stars above reveal their own patterns. For the stars we gaze upon each night are not but an illusion from the past. And then, thus, the past lies beneath and above the present fist. This is the truth my shamans embrace, the bones upon which the future clings like muscle.
Hmm.
But I felt like that Erickson in this whole series so far, it is trying to show something about how we're tied to the past. And even when we think we're in the present, we have the impact of the past all around us. Even the stars, which we now know scientifically, we're seeing the light of stars from eons ago.
Yeah. So,
So I just thought it was pretty profound and maybe was something Erickson felt was important to get out there and
yeah.
narrate.
I had that highlighted on my Kindle too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. And
Mhm.
so those were some of the quotes that stood out to me. Um, did you catch some of the allusions to Tavori and being I guess, ill prepared? I don't know if she's ill prepared or
Hmm.
inexperienced.
Inexperienced, yeah.
Yeah. And even her gamut, who is her fist, is not really, um, you know, he probably is capable of being a fist, but it was never his intention to become one.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a weakness too. And I'm not sure if we're being shown that weakness so that they'll later succeed, or if we're being prepared, for something, for a route, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I did I was a little bit confused with the daggers and trading the stones for the daggers because the
Oh,
stones or the gems were um, very valuable because they had you could do things with them. I forget exactly what, but was there a reason that he traded daggers, or did he just really like daggers and wanted to trade the stones for it?
is that, I know who you mean. Now, that was the mage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, Kem, Kemmel? I can't remember his name, but um, I got that might have been Coltane's knife,
Oh, okay.
and that's why it's so valuable, because it um, had some link to the chain of dogs,
Oh,
and
okay.
it was vague, but I think that's why, and so it might convey some kind of power,
Hmm.
with the history.
Okay, I was a little bit. I figured there was something I was not catching there because I was wondering what that
Yeah.
was all about.
And gosh, I wish I weren't forgetting his name because I know it. But the mage, is it Quickbin?
I have it here. Let me see if I can find it.
Well, in any case, he's the one with the 1,300 children who have been reformulated, so to speak,
Hmm.
after being tortured and losing their eyes. And I think that's another interesting bit of power in waiting, because I'm wondering what those 1,300 children are going to do once they're trained. And I like that he's in this book for that reason. I feel like he's there to remind us that he's in the picture, and that those 1,300 children are in the picture.
Oh yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing, what happens.
With you you are nothing, child. You were not a dancer. Your body is a service to Rashan, and Rasham is this realm's manifestation of shadow, the drawing of darkness to light. When you dance, it is not you that is watched. It is the shadow of your body paint. Is the shadow your body paints? The shadow is the dancer, not you.
Hmm. That I think relates to the Warren of Shadow.
Okay.
Um, and if I understand correctly, well, first that is Cotillion speaking to Lastara,
Yes.
and so Lastara had, you know, she had been orphaned intentionally by her parents, who just kicked her out when she was 5, taken in by these priests, and ultimately trained as this, I don't know, fighter, which I don't know, had something to do with dancing. That I'm still working out. But I think Cotillion, the assassin, has or is trying to take her under his wing. And so, because the person that appeared to her was Cotillion, also known as the Rope, previously known as Dancer. And yeah, I know,
Yeah.
previously known as Dancer when he was alive and Kellanvad was the emperor. So, yeah, and it seems like Lastara, because of the betrayal of her parents, puts a lot of stock in loyalty. And so it seemed that she was questioning whether Cotillion was still loyal to Kellanvad or not. That's what I got from that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that's a whole other interesting uh, side of this. Lastara teams up with Pearl to, who is a claw, to go and find Phillison. And so now they're on the trail to find Phillison because Tavori asked them to. And it just seems like things are building up to, I don't know what kind of, you know, critical mass, but it's really fascinating.
Yeah, I love Fellison.
Yeah. And I do like in Erickson's work how his female characters are very much engaged and in action and driving the narrative as much as the male characters,
Mm-hmm.
and in a way that you don't even really notice it. I mean, I really just now thought of it. It's not something that you just automatically are like, oh, he's using a female character now.
Mm-hmm.
But as we've named these three characters, I've realized they're all three driving forces in one way. And
Yeah,
Absalar too, who is also in this book too.
yeah. It's funny you mention that because a lot of the times I'll forget if the characters are male or female.
Yeah,
I'll have to have to be reminded. I'll have to go back and look. So yeah, there is no. They're just characters. There's no. Um,
right.
it just is. There's not. You can't tell when he's going back and forth. So that is
Yeah,
that is a because some of the most powerful characters, some of my favorite characters from the series have been the women.
yeah. And he doesn't. He lets us know, but he doesn't use it as a way of building characterization. I mean, we don't have the female characters worrying about their hair or whatever. We don't have occasionally there's on both sides, of men and women, occasionally there'll be comments about attraction or about something like that, but just not so that it's overbearing and you become hyper aware
Hmm.
of that, or thinking there's suddenly going to be you know, even if there are love interests, I think from what we've read so far, we're not supposed to put too much, we're not supposed to put too much investment in the outcome, other than it being very bizarre and strange, like the Tattersale situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think in this world, the story we're reading now, I think most everyone is worried about survival, or I think it's kind of an afterthought. That makes sense because
yeah,
when romances are thrown in, just because it just doesn't feel
yeah,
right. So I'm glad that it's not a focus.
yeah. I will say I was reading the Malazan board on Reddit. I'm just going to say that just get a sense of conversations. And something that stuck out to me was nobody ever dies in Malazan. And I was like, I kind of see what they mean. I mean, and part of it is the name thing, and some of it, like now we know Kellanved and Dancer ascended. So even though they were supposed to have been assassinated, they're still like around, and that's starting to make sense to me. I think
Hmm.
that's something that's making sense to me where even if a character dies or is reported to be dead, I keep in mind, I'm starting to keep in mind, oh, yeah, but what if they're going to show up somehow, maybe with a different name, So I better just kind of keep that in mind. Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's great.
The Reddit boards I think are really good. There's some great conversations there. I try to avoid that. I try to avoid it or be very careful because sometimes in the title there's a spoiler. So I try to be
Oh,
careful with.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and
That's,
I know it's not intentional. The fan base for Malazan has been really supportive and really great. I know they kind of get a bad rap, but every fandom has their bad
oh,
apples. But
yeah,
the ones I've interacted with have been really helpful and excited when they hear that you're reading it.
yeah, yeah. I think, even over a year ago, um, before this even started, I would look at the Malazan boards because I was trying to figure out if I wanted to start the series, and I appreciated that even then because, I would just read the ones that, gave some helpful tips and some general ideas, but yeah, didn't get into the end of the book or the spoilers or whatever. And
Mm.
so I've always liked the community, and now uh, I feel better, I guess, for having read it. But yeah, I stay away otherwise. So
Yeah. Another couple of things I wrote down is we did find out that being in Dead House, that those characters have certain powers, or they have longevity, uh, resistance basically to poisons and things, and immunity to some things. So that I thought that was really interesting. They're not, we know that they have there's benefits to it.
which characters? All of them or
Um,
different characters?
let me find out. Let me look it up on my pad here. Let's see. I believe uh, was it Dijuk,
Mm-hmm.
Hall, and Amaron.
Mm-hmm. Like Dijak, one arm,
Yeah.
and what was it again that you said that they?
Uh, Amaron, they have certain gifts, longevity, immunity to most diseases, and other things. So they, being in Dead House, they came out of it with some powers.
Interesting. Because I'm wondering, toward the end, Fiddler hears that Whiskey Jack and Jack and the rest of them are dead. I'm not sure I believe that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
just like they're saying Ganua's parent is dead, but I'm not sure if that, that's just the rumors of war, as they say. So, so I'm waiting to see if they really are. But that would even be more odd if Dujek actually has some immunity. So
Hmm.
maybe that's a way of telling us, no, he's not really dead.
Because Topper, um, in his report, he includes what happened to Paran and is that he's dead, and that all the bridge burners are dead, and that he saw the bodies. So yeah, I think that's. I don't believe it either. I think that's just what they. He claims he saw the bodies though. So
I don't know. It's hard, and maybe he did. So the thing is, what we've got happening here is the Empress. He's working for the Empress. He's the claw for the Empress,
mm.
and she's already pulled kind of a bait and switch with Whiskey Jack and all of them already. You
Yeah.
know, so now that they're coming back again and saying this, we as readers, I mean, to me, we as readers have to question: is this true? You know, Uh, but then maybe it is, and maybe that's going to be the trick on us this time.
Mm.
But that's I think that's an example of what makes this so good and interesting because um, we really can't be sure at this point. But then these characters are going to act on this information,
Mm.
you know.
That's a great point.
And something else I wondered now that Tavori has figured out that, oh, Ganua's parent he was alive all along. So what exactly is she supposed to be doing for the Empress? I mean, the Empress let her do all that to her family to prove her loyalty, even though her family had not been dishonored and Ganuas had been fulfilling the Empress's wishes too.
Mm.
I mean, it just seems like she's playing both of them. So,
Hmm. There's so many different strings everywhere.
yes.
I mean, there's so many different strings going on.
Yeah. And I do read it thinking, okay, this piece of dialogue probably means something profound. And I'm not going to figure it out until I read the next 5 books or how many books are left. And that's kind of cool, um, part of the process. But I tell you, I do want to finish the series. I really think that the more I find out, the more interesting
Mm.
it does become. So,
Well, I think it's really helping to take it book by book,
hmm
because and I hear a lot of people say that too. That there's things that happened in Guardians of the Moon that will mean something profound later in the series,
hmm
and I think that's really neat that's happening. What I worry about is that there's so much in every book. Am I going to remember
hmm
that moment from Guardians of the Moon when I get to book 9 or 10?
yeah. Even this part about the hounds with where Onrek, you know, releases those 2 hounds, he makes some comment about hounds being uh, 2 hounds being killed already,
Yeah,
and I forget. I kind of remember that. I think that happened in memory. No, Gardens of the Moon, but I can't remember. And I don't even know if they're related, And that was one of those where that probably means something, and I just haven't caught it yet, you
yeah,
know. So,
yeah. There's the other character that really stood out to me was one that's I'm gonna butcher the name, but Bidden,
uh-huh,
Bidethal, the one who has an appetite for children. Sounds like.
right.
So yeah, that's I think those that's kind of those really despicable characters. They keep we want to keep reading to see what happens to them. We want them to fail.
Right. And the interesting thing there, you've reminded me for Fellison, he's one of her mages, I guess. And there are two others, Lorik and I forget the other one, but they're in competition with each other, and some are more loyal than others to Felison, and I see them as another weak link in some way
Hmm.
to whatever is going to happen. They're going to switch sides, or they going to disappear when everything gets hot. Just seems like there's something more there. Um, and I think it's kind of poetic, maybe, that Bedethal is able to do that. Felison essentially adopted every child in the camp to put them under her protection. But Bidethal is able to get away with it because the whirlwind goddess distracts Felison and doesn't let her know what's going on, even with her closest adopted daughter, Felison the younger, the other Felison, you know. So I feel like, again, layers within layers of things happening, which, when the pressure really builds, what direction are all of these characters going to go, you know,
Hmm.
on both sides, on Tavore's side too.
Yeah, because when was it Herboric?
Hmm.
He threatens Bidenthal to stay away from Felison, and he's it doesn't seem like he really takes him that seriously. Like,
Yeah,
okay, sure, you know. But I think everyone's so distracted with everything else going on in the world that it's times like this that people like Bidenthal can really, because everyone else's attention is elsewhere. So people who want to take advantage of those situations, it's a perfect chance for them to do that in
right.
times like this.
Yeah, I think he depicts that really well.
Hmm.
And gosh, that reminded me of something. Oh, because I was thinking of kids. The other interesting omen was the young boy with the bone that
What?
came out and essentially stood in Tavori's footsteps with this human bone and spooked everybody. I found that so interesting. Um, and then they overcame it by raiding other graves so that they could carry other bits of bone and essentially you know, own the omen. Um, so, um,
It's it's almost like I think this part was on Kindle. It was like 300 pages or something. I think on Kindle. I'm not sure about paperback, but these 300 felt like 700 or 800 in another book because there's just so much.
there was every page had some detail, and like I said, I went over each chapter at least twice, um, from between Audible and Kindle,
Mm.
as I'm either taking a walk, or I'm, sometimes in the evening I'll sit down and I'll kind of read through it again, just to check back some key points, you know.
Oh.
But I think once we get it, I think it's really a profound story. I think he's got a lot of important themes, and I think, I can't remember. I think he's an archaeologist,
I
and I
was it
or
is it
anthropologist.
um was it just I forget the name. I'm having a brain fart. I used to study this in school. It's um the land I'm having it's like a complete
Yeah,
idea.
human
But yeah, so
geography.
geography. Yeah, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
having a brain fart. Yeah, something like that.
yeah. I think that informs a lot of his thinking, and that, I always think of that as I'm reading that he's really speaking to the human condition, and how history repeats itself. Everything that he said,
Mm-hmm.
how maybe we're tied to the past, and
Mm-hmm.
just things like that. So I that helps me kind of understand his approach, and I think that's how I tend to read in general. I love a good story, but I also like um, some things I can forgive if I understand why the author did what they did, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
it
You
does,
know,
yeah.
and I'm not saying he has anything that needs to be forgiven. I just mean in general, I try to think, why did this author put this in here?
Mm.
And maybe I'm just not getting it yet, but maybe somebody will.
Yeah, I really want to get it. I think without talking to you about this, I'd be totally. I mean, I'm still a little bit lost,
Hey,
but I'd be totally lost.
no, you've brought up some things I hadn't even, remembered. So, yeah, and I kind of had to shake my head. But that's what this is for. And, I really hope others join because I think recently I ended up reading that fable again about the blind man and the elephant, and I really think it's kind of that thing where we're all going to find different things and just develop that broader picture. So,
Mm.
um, you know, so if anybody's listening, uh, the more the merrier. And
Yeah.
I don't think we should be. I don't think we should be intimidated. I think every reader absorbs things in their own way, and that's okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
There was a couple more things I had written down, but I don't know why I shouldn't enjoy this, but I really like the military, the moving, and you're going to this location, you're joining this troop, you're
Hmm.
moving here to this brigade or whatever it is. I really enjoy that shifting and constant those decisions that are made to strengthen certain points, certain parts
Hmm.
of the world, or to strengthen certain squads, or that squad's dead, go here instead. I really enjoy that
Hmm.
the military aspect. But a couple other things. Did we know about Rashan that it was spared? Because I didn't know if that was revealed before, or if
Rashawn,
that the city that it wasn't destroyed because of the religious. It was like considered sacred.
I do not remember that. So that's a good question. Um, yeah, that's a good question. So now I'll have to make a note and go read about that. Um, where did it, or do you remember what it said about that?
Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, and who made the comment? Because maybe that can help me. Sometimes it's more the character that said it. Um,
Yeah, let me see if I can find it here. So it looks like Lastara um, says that Rashan is the manifestation of shadow, the drawing of darkness to light. She says that the Melazon Empire came and purged the many seven cities cults, but not Rashan, for it was a recognized religion.
oh, okay.
Yeah, she remembers the night the cult was destroyed. A high priest from another city visited Master Bidenthal, and that there would be a dance. Lestara was attracted to the high priest and didn't dance well. It's revealed that the high priest was in fact Quick Ben, who had
Uh,
come to destroy Rashan.
hmm.
So I wasn't sure if that was something I missed before or if that was just revealed now.
It could have been alluded to before in a way that it's only now being explained.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's worth noting, just to remember
yeah.
for later.
And the other thing I had was Kalam using the bone whistle.
Oh yeah, that's who I was thinking of, Kalam.
Yeah, and um, calling up the Azalon, Azalon demon.
Uh huh. Yeah, and that was a wild scene because the demon, I guess, stretched itself out so it could keep the balcony in place.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that on screen, actually. Um, but I don't remember why he called the demon.
I don't either.
Yeah,
But there's so many points in these books that I'd love to see them adapt. And
yeah.
I know Erickson and like AP are a little tight-lipped on it, so
Hmm.
I'm hopeful that there's something in the works. But I wonder how they would adapt. It'd have to be like 20 seasons.
I hope he has full 100% control over it.
Yeah, I
So
hope so.
yeah, because it's worth it, and I would love to see this. And I know what you mean about the military aspect. I like the camaraderie.
Yeah,
I like the camaraderie that builds, and really, I have to say this because I'm working on some fantasy related things myself, and I don't think I have the capacity to write anything remotely like a military adventure, but yet I'm so drawn to them at the same time, and I think it's the camaraderie, you know. And I think
yeah.
any good fantasy story to me, I enjoy the camaraderie of it too.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's funny, something that Jimmy from the Fantasy Network said. I forget what discussion it was, but he was talking about people who complain about all the soldiers in
Mhm.
this series that it's not interesting. Soldiers aren't interesting. They're just foot soldiers. Like what? That's not fun to read. But Jimmy said something like, "Have you ever talked to a soldier? Have you
Mhm.
ever sat down and talked to one?" And they have. I mean, imagine the stories and the insight they can give you. So that's
Right.
always that kind of changed my perspective on it. Is hearing those stories from those people who were in the trenches.
Yeah. I mean, there's even way back, I, you know, there were books like, I don't know if you've ever read The Things They Carried, which is a book about Vietnam. Um, and I guess I'm, grew up in that age where the end of Vietnam and then, all of the aftermath of that started coming out. I don't know if that has a bearing on some of these stories. And
Hmm.
in fact, I would say I think some of our fantasy of the 90s uh, is a response to that era because, like, in Wheel of Time, Robert Jordan was a Vietnam veteran.
Hmm.
And so his work has a PTSD theme to it. And, George R. R. Martin uh, did not enlist, or some, I don't know how, I don't know that whole story, but at the same time, some of his themes, relate back to themes of the 60s and 70s. And
Hmm.
so I just wonder with Erickson as well if that's also something that's being picked up on in some way.
Well, to
Either
put
if
the
not Vietnam, the Gulf War and that kind of thing.
to put on the list and ask him when we can get hold of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I just looked up the. I'm cheating. I'm using the wiki here for this, but
Mhm.
Kalam uses the bone whistle, and an Alazan demon arises, and Kalam tells the demon to get Captain Uriz, Irriz.
Oh, I remember that. Um, and I'm not sure why he wanted him.
The mage Ebron says he thought Kalam and the others were outlawed, and Kalam tells them they are. If it was a feint, they introduce themselves as Sergeant Cord, Bell, and Corporal Shard. Kalam asks them about Kindly, and Cord says they lost him and the lieutenant days ago when they fell down a well shaft and drowned, swept away by an underground river. Kalam
Mm,
informs him the demon just killed 500 besiegers in a few minutes.
mm. There's another feint, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wasn't killed. So, yeah, I guess I'm not sure if that's in response to something because of Coltane's death and the chain of dogs. And maybe I got the wrong impression as to what Kalam was, why he was there, what he was attempting to accomplish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's so many things to keep track of. So many
And
things.
like I said, I almost felt like Kalam was there just to remind us that he is in the picture. And I'm sure it's moving his story forward in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But it was tantalizing because I wanted to hear more about him, but we only got bits and pieces. And so I just thought, well, maybe this is not his book, and his full story is not here, but maybe we'll see him in the see more in the next book. Because speaking of romances, he did get married to a very nice lady who is now raising his 1,300 children while he's off, doing this.
Yeah.
So, but that's an interesting story. I think we're just in the middle of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's quite a few pages to go, so we'll see. Maybe we'll get.
Yeah.
Yeah. But cool. So yeah, is there anything else you can think of?
Not at the moment. I am going to look up Rashawn and Kalam and definitely look forward to, I think it's the last third of the book, right?
We have book 3, and then there on this. I'm trying to avoid the. I see book 4, House of Chains, but it's the epilogue, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I think just one more, and then the
So
epilogue.
should we, let's see here. I'm looking at mine too. So there's a book 3 and then an epilogue.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So should we just read the epilogue too, or what
Yeah,
do you
we could do
think?
that. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I look forward to the next talk. Should we finish up this one and then in the read along starting in January, we'll start with the next book
Sure. We could do that.
if it works.
Yeah,
If it works out.
that'd be good. Yeah, I want to. I want enough time. I want some time between, but not too much time, because then it's then it becomes
Yeah.
something else.
Oh, sure. Oh, you know what? I do see there's a book 3 and a book 4,
Oh, okay.
but I'm
Maybe I
open
read it.
to reading them all, or we could just take the chunk of book 3 either way.
Yeah, we'll see who else we can wrangle for that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Sounds good.
cool. Well, if anyone wants to connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
On Twitter right now at El Goshi. And, you know, right here, I guess.
Yeah,
Next
cool.
time I'm talking about House of Chains.
Yeah, it's good
Yeah.
stuff. Awesome. Well, until next time, we'll let everyone know what the date is, but we'll hopefully see you next time.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.